Welcome back to Pigskin Perspectives. College football it technically already started, but week one just around the corner. So tonight we'll take a look back at what was week 0. Then we'll take a quick preview of week 1. We'll do Thursday and Friday games because just the way the schedule works out when this will be filmed, most of the Thursday games would have already started. There's only 6 games on Fridays, so might as well combine those. Then Thursday's episode we'll look forward to Saturday. Then the plan is maybe a recap episode Saturday, then preview Monday's 2 total, there's more than 2 total games because there's a few mixed in on Sunday. That's the plan right now. So if you're just looking for the Saturday preview, that's going to be on Thursday. But hey, stay tuned here. We're going to give some good knowledge here. We may even take guesses of who starting quarterbacks might be for some teams. So first, we might as well start out with what already happened. Week 0 is in the books. 7 games already in the books. 7 teams already have victories on their schedule. So why don't we just take a quick look back at those? So kicking off the college football season was Notre Dame and Navy, taking place in Dublin, Ireland. And this was never a competition. Notre Dame went out to an early 14-0 lead. They took a 28-0 lead into halftime. And they never looked back. They win this game 42-3 against Navy. No real surprise there. I thought maybe Navy could keep it a little bit of a closer game, but they did not. Sam Hartman had a great first game as a Notre Dame Fighting Irish quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see how that develops the rest of the season. But nonetheless, Notre Dame, number 13 Notre Dame, I should say, walk away with a week 0 victory and have their record at 1-0. UTEP traveled to Jacksonville, Alabama, that is, to face off against Jacksonville State coach Rich Rodriguez and the Fighting Gamecocks, playing their first game in the FBS, and they get a 17-14 victory over the Miners of UTEP. UTEP just didn't look like they were in this game at all, even though they probably were the better team, but Jacksonville State came out fighting. They get their first win at the FBS level in week 0. First conference win too, because this was a CUSA matchup. So they are both 1-0 overall and 1-0 in the CUSA. UMass traveled to Las Cruces, New Mexico to face off against New Mexico State, and they come away with the victory, starting off 1-0 for the first time against an FBS opponent on the road since 1984. They played Ball State that year. And of course, that stat factors in that they were an FCS team for a lot of that time. So stat is a little skewed, but still a big number nonetheless. Don Brown gets a victory for the Minutemen of UMass, a 41-30 victory that saw a total of 48 points scored in the fourth quarter. An amazing game to watch. UMass was one of the teams I did say we're going to go over their over-under this year. So 1 win out of the way. Hopefully a few more to come. They got a tough matchup this week against Auburn. We will obviously get into that on Thursday because that game's on Saturday. Should be intriguing nonetheless. The Bobcats of Ohio, Maction, took over San Diego as they faced off against the Aztecs at Snapdragon Stadium. But it was the Aztecs who got the last laugh, getting a 20-13 victory. The biggest story coming out of this game was Ohio quarterback Curtis Rourke getting injured. Tim Albin saying it's not a serious injury, but it was good enough for them to keep him out the rest of the game. I think both these teams have a long way to go before we find out their true form. It's going to be interesting to see how these two teams develop from their week 0 form throughout the season. Vanderbilt in their half-built stadium, because both sides of the end zones are currently under renovation, after a hour-and-a-half weather delay, faced off against Hawai'i, got the 35-28 victory, but I think the bigger story coming out of this game was that Hawai'i looked a lot better than obviously what the final score said. Coach Jimmy Chang, I think, is going to have this team rolling this year. They were also a team that I picked to go over their over-under total. Obviously didn't have a win this week, but they do have a winnable game coming up this week. I will get into that because that game's on Friday, so look forward to that. USC, number 6, Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams looking to defend his title, or trophy I should say, faced off against San Jose State, a sneaky good San Jose State team, I think. USC wins 56-28. But like I said, San Jose State looks sneaky good, but I can tell you one thing, this USC defense still looks very bad. I do not know how this team did not get better this offseason. They added in transfer guys, but they did not get better. And I think that is mostly coaching, which the DC is Alex Grinch. If USC wants to, win the Pac-12 or even make the playoff and have a chance at winning a game in the playoff, this defense is going to have to show up, because as of now, this team may lose 2 games in the Pac-12, and that's just not going to be enough for them to even get in the playoffs. Most likely not a New Year's Six either if they lose 2 games. They also have a Notre Dame game mixed in there, and if week 0 Notre Dame is to show anything, Notre Dame might be a good team this year and might be a sneaky playoff contender. So that's going to be another interesting thing to follow this season, is if this USC defense can improve. And finally, in the final game of week 0 was FIU traveling to Ruston to face off against Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech sneak away with a 22-17 victory. FIU felt in control most of this game, and they just let it slip away, and Louisiana Tech come away with the victory. So given that was week 0 of the 2023 college football season, so much more football to come, and that includes right now as we start to preview what is to come in week 1. We'll just go through the games that are coming up, like I said, for Thursday and Friday. If I have any interesting tidbits, I'll add them in. So kicking off week 1 is Georgia State at home against Rhode Island. Not really expecting a ton of surprising things in that game. I think Georgia State win that. As of now, UCF are facing off against Kent State, kicking off UCF's Big 12 tenure. I say on as of now because the hurricane looks to be potentially affecting that game. So, I mean, if you're interested in watching that game, I definitely keep checking the internet, make sure it's still on. Elon face off against Wake Forest in their first game of the post-Sam Hartman quarterback era. Should be quite interesting to see how that plays out for them. But, I mean, it's Elon, so not a ton to read into that. St. Francis face off against Western Michigan. I really got nothing on that one. This might be a sneaky good game here. The sneaky good game of this Thursday slate of week 1. NC State traveled to the Rent to face off against UConn. This seems like a game that UConn can sneak away with a victory here, given that it's at home. If this was in Raleigh, I don't think UConn would have a chance. But given that it's at home, I feel like the crowd's going to really be pumped up for this one. I think they might sneak away with the victory. NC State's currently a 14-point favorite, so that kind of gives you an idea where the line currently stands. And I think this this might be the upset alert for the Thursday night action. Then in the 8 o'clock window on Fox, it is the $5 Bits of Broken Chairs Trophy between Nebraska and Minnesota. Two teams that seem, at least to me, headed in opposite directions in the Big Ten. I think Nebraska's headed up. Minnesota's headed down. It's going to be interesting to see how Matt Rhule's first game as head coach of the Cornhuskers plays out. South Dakota, it's facing off against Missouri, a team that I'm seeing get a lot of hype this past few weeks. I'm not really sure if I'm buying into that, but Eli Drinkowitz can coach up a team really well, so we'll be interested to see how that plays out. Tulsa face off against Arkansas Pine Bluff. UAB face off against North Carolina A&T. And then the game of the Thursday slate, the only ranked team playing is number 14 Utah. They face off against the Florida Gators at home in Salt Lake City. I'm very excited for this game because, it's two very good teams facing off at a non-neutral site venue. Obviously, Utah traveled to Florida last year, so now Florida is returning that favor this year. I love this game. We need less neutral site games in college sports, period, because it's really taking over in basketball right now. And, it's always been here in college football. But I love the idea of this game happening on campus. I still think Utah will come away with the victory. I think Cam Rising's supposed to play. Obviously, he tore his ACL in the Rose Bowl. I think he's supposed to play, but he might be delayed another week. But it's going to be interesting to see how a Graham Mertz-led Florida team is going to play also. So this should be an entertaining game nonetheless. And the final game of the Thursday slate is at 10 p.m. in Tempe, Arizona on the Pac-12 network. It is Southern Utah facing off against Arizona State. Arizona State, this also may be close to upset alert. I don't think Arizona State's going to be good at all, so Southern Utah could give them a game. So given that, we'll move on to the Friday slate. Only 6 games here, but still, I feel like there's at least 3-4 interesting games here. The Howard Bison travel to Ypsilanti, Michigan, face off against Eastern Michigan. That game's at 6:30 Eastern time. The Battle of Miami. Miami travels down to Miami to face off against Miami. That's obviously the Miami, Ohio Redhawks facing off against the Miami, Florida Hurricanes in Miami Gardens, actually, at Hard Rock Stadium. I think Miami's going to win this game, obviously. But if a real pick here, I think Miami, Ohio might sneak away with this. I'm not really sure what to think of NILU, as people are calling them, because that's all Miami, Florida does is use NIL to get their players. Same with Texas A&M, but year 2 of the Mario Cristobal era has to get off to a good start, I think, for there to be any hope this year. Central Michigan traveled to East Lansing, a place they've won 3 times before. It was, I believe, 89, 91, and 2009. They face off against the Michigan State Spartans, where Mel Tucker is still very quiet about who the starting quarterback is going to be. It's going to be quite interesting to see who that's going to be. I have a feeling it's most likely going to be Caden Hauser, but I wouldn't be surprised if he splits time between him and Noah Kim. It just kind of seems like something Mel Tucker would do, but who knows? Maybe he does commit to a quarterback this week. I'm more worried about Michigan State covering this game because it's 14.5, I believe, right now. I don't know if they're going to get to that, just given that there's a lot of questions around this team. So I really don't know if they get to that. That's going to be a main sticking point of this. Louisville face off against Georgia Tech. I believe this game's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and not at Bobby Dodd. I don't really know what to think of Georgia Tech. I feel like they're kind of exiting the rebuild, but not really. I still think Louisville win the first game of the Jeff Brom era. Lance Leopold and his Kansas Jayhawks face off against the Missouri State Bears. Jaden Daniels, I believe, should be starting this game. Obviously, he got injured last year. Should be starting this game. And then this is the game of the Friday window that I believe is the upset alert game. 11 p.m. kickoff on the island of Oahu. It's Stanford versus Hawaii at TC Ching Athletics Complex in Honolulu. Stanford is a 3.5 point favorite. They opened up as a 7-point favorite, so this has been very much bet down, especially after week 0. I like Hawaii a lot in this game. Stanford, they're not good at all. The first game of the post-David Shaw era, Hawaii really showed me a lot week 0, even though they lost that game. They just had to clean up a few mistakes, and they could have won that game easily. Garrett Schrader, the quarterback, he's not I wouldn't say he's not the perfect run and shoot quarterback, but he's good enough to get them there. There's a lot of good wide receiving talent for Hawaii from what I watched on Saturday, and I'm really excited to see how this develops for this Rainbow Warrior team, because I think this is their first opportunity of a win this year, because they came very close on Saturday in Nashville against Vanderbilt. So given that's just going to be the short episode today. We'll just preview those games. It will be much longer come Thursday when we are previewing all of Saturday's slate. It's a packed slate. There's a lot of interesting games in there, so we'll get to those. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Pigskin Perspectives. Make sure you come back on Thursday for that full Saturday preview. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you stumble across this episode of Pigskin Perspectives, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Hopefully, you stick around and come back on Thursday, or check out, the other content on this channel. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you back here on Thursday for another episode of Pigskin Perspectives.